Welcome to part 4 of this Peatland Action mini-series on how to complete the spatial data template. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to create your restoration footprint. I'll run through the inbuilt buffer tool and also explain how the unrestorable peat layer can be used to trim out any areas you don't wish to include. Here you can see that we have the spatial data template set up in QGIS. The site mapping has been completed for the area in the map view. First, a site outline was added, and then other features have been added to the restoration lines, forest to bog, area-based restoration and unrestorable peat layers. Further information about adding features to these layers can be found in the videos of part 3 of this mini-series. Only once your mapping is completed can you look at adding a restoration footprint to the template. This is because the footprint is generated by buffering the features mapped for restoration, and therefore any changes to the mapped erosion features may result in changes to the extents of your restoration footprint. It's recommended that whilst generating your restoration footprint, the restoration footprint PDF guidance contained within the template zip pack is opened alongside your GIS project. The guidance document looks like this one to the left, and it initially provides some definitions on site outlines and restoration footprints. It then goes on to explain why Peatland Action needs this information before going through a step-by-step walkthrough on how to create your restoration footprint. There's a list at the end of the document of frequently asked questions which covers the areas which should be trimmed out of the footprint. It's important to revise this list and make sure that you're not submitting your footprint with any of these areas included. You'll note that this includes any areas that fall on the opposite side of a road or a river from where the restoration is taking place. The guidance also recommends the removal of any non-peatland areas, including rocky outcrops, forestry areas, and anywhere where there's still extensively degraded peatland which has not been captured in the restoration plan. Going back to the spatial data template in QGIS, in order to add a restoration footprint, you can use the restoration footprint buffer tool. This should be included in your models in the processing toolbox. To access the processing toolbox, go to the cog symbol in the toolbar at the top. Click on this and it should bring up the processing toolbox panel to your right. Scroll down the panel and expand the models group, and here you should have the restoration footprint buffer. If the model is missing, then go to the top of the toolbox and click on the model symbol and then select the third option to add model to toolbox. This will bring up a new Window Explorer box where you can navigate to where you've saved the template pack downloaded from the Peatland Action website. From here you can add your Model 3 file by selecting it and clicking on Open. Once added, double-click on the Restoration Footprint Buffer model and you'll see that a new dialog box opens with a default buffer distance of 50 meters. This is now the recommended standard, and as such no changes are needed. You can just press Run, ensuring that any unrestorable peat features that you wish to be trimmed out of the footprint have been selected beforehand. Do this by selecting the unrestorable peat layer in the Layers panel, and then using the Select tools in the toolbar, select the features individually within the geoplan. You'll notice that I haven't selected the feature that was digitized from a drain in video 3F, and that's because this erosion feature may benefit from the surrounding restoration. Once you've selected the areas which you want to be trimmed out of the restoration footprint from the unrestorable peat layer, press the Run button in the dialog box. Your restoration footprint will automatically be generated to buffer all of the features to 50 meters and to clip to any of the selected features within the unrestorable peat layer. Your footprint will be saved to a temporary scratch layer in the Layers panel to the left, called Draft Restoration Footprint. Hovering over the symbol to the right of the layer name, you'll see that the data in the temporary scratch layer is not permanently saved and that the contents will be discarded once the project is closed. In order to save this layer, you need to either export the temporary scratch layer as something permanent, or you can copy the feature into another permanent layer, and that's what we're going to do now. So open the attribute table for the Draft Restoration Footprint layer by right-clicking and going to Open Attribute Table, and then select the feature and copy it using the copy symbol, which is the two pieces of paper overlaid one another. You then want to paste this feature into the Restoration Footprint Template attribute table. So right-click and open the attribute table for the Restoration Footprint layer in the template, and toggle editing mode on by clicking the pencil icon at the top of the table. You can then paste in the feature by clicking on the clipboard symbol. Save the layer edits by clicking the floppy disk symbol, and you can toggle editing mode off by selecting the pencil icon. Close the attribute table for the restoration footprint layer and deselect everything in your map below. Remove the draft restoration footprint layer from the layers panel by right-clicking and selecting to remove layer. Now you can see that you have your restoration footprint stylized as a green outline as per the template styling, and you'll clearly see now where the restoration footprint's been trimmed to the unrestorable peat layers that were selected whilst the model was running. Note that it is now mandatory to submit any areas that have been trimmed out of the restoration footprint in the unrestorable peat layer. If you've already digitized your restoration footprint and manually trimmed areas out, then you can use the footprint buffer tool again in order to add these areas to the unrestorable peat layer. You can do this by running the restoration footprint buffer tool and then clipping the temporary scratch layer against your trimmed footprint by using the vector geoprocessing tool called Difference. This will return a temporary scratch layer called Difference, which contains a multi-part polygon of all the areas that have been trimmed out of the footprint. You can then either use this layer to identify the areas which need to be added into the unrestorable peat layer, or you can run multi-part to single parts from the processing toolbox on the Difference layer and copy the individual polygons directly into the unrestorable peat layer, providing reasons for each. See video 3F for more details. There'll be other videos in this Peatland Action mini-series on how to download the template from the Peatland Action website, how to add features into the individual layers, as well as how to undertake some self-QA prior to submission. And these can all be found on the Nature's Got Peatland Action webpage.